Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is Grand Arena, the second match of the second week, season 27. And unfortunately, the microphone had some issues during the record, blaming the cat again. So I'm going to have to record over the footage. We've done this once or twice before. I think it sometimes works out. Last round was a win, but we showed that, and it was my suspicion to begin with. My opponent did not look like he was a 3v3 participator, and that is what ended up happening. Geotack here, let me show you just how that ended up. He did one battle here up against Telzine, nothing to really explore here. Today's matchup though, or the day during which I recorded this, my opponent was Cold Bravo. He had a good roster, good history. It was going to be a tough match. Here's a look at what his roster looks like. You can see as a 4-star Executor, Lord Vader, 4 GLs, has Starkiller. Let's show this by speed for a quick glance before we get to the hotbot. Here are his fastest characters. His Commander Ahsoka is right around 300, like 301 or something like that. Yeah, 301. So that is the limit on the 300 speed characters. Didn't mean to click on Maul here, but let's take a look at him while we're here. He's at 298. So that's the threshold for his fastest characters. Here is the hotbot, what it shows us. So he's in a guild that is slightly larger. Lifetime Banners is very good. That's not just a player who takes the game mode seriously, but won a lot, did very well in it. Clears are and undersized, you can see, are not that far off from me. So that's a player who knows his counters. Zetas are lower, and considering he has 4 GLs to my 2 GLs, that's kind of notable. A number of Amis. He was missing some that I thought were desirable. Lower depth, but he has a solid amount of relics. And then in terms of his speed mods, less than me and lower counts, but he's still in a pretty decent range. Lower on the 20 plus, but the 15 plus and 10 plus, he's not that far off. I guess with the 10 plus he kind of is. A lot of tier 8 relics, good distribution on the rest. Slower Sith Eternal Emperor. No Jedi Knight Luke is pretty notable, but first opponent I'm facing who has a Starkiller. And then the slower Cat and his Executor. And now starting with some of the footage, here is the defense. Looking at what I set. So I made this a little bit different. So we've got Palpatine, Qui-Gon, Darth Revan, Nute, and CLS. Shifted things around to make the back wall a little stronger, I think. I might be getting my rounds messed up. On the top territory, that didn't really alter. Telzine, Mon Mothma, Bam, Finn, Dash. That territory really needs to get a good deal stronger. With Fleet, I did make a change because he sets a very strong Fleet defense. So Finalizer moved back there. They're not going to do anything. They're not very strong. They're slow. But he's going to be using Executor Malevolence, or Executor Negotiator Rebels, I think, from his history. Which means I'll be needing a touch more. So he's got Cat, but it's a slower Cat. Iden, Grievous, Nute, Darth Revan. It's a weaker Darth Revan squad though, weaker Grievous. I'm going to want to try and JML that JMK, which I did do last week successfully. But it's a little tricky. Bottom territory, we're looking at First Order, Dash, Jango, Scion of Jango with Zam, and Bossk. There's also Fennec there, Relic 1 Fennec. Probably not the best use of Fennec. Looks like I didn't show the back territory on my side. No major differences there. So I'm going to start with Scion of Jango. They have Zam. I always want to respect Zam. They get out ahead. I think I end up using Han just because I like getting out ahead of that Zam and making sure I can deal with it. Just spending a little time trying to decide between which leader I want to end up using. There's a couple different options. Like Wedge has a little bit of heal. Rolo has a little bit of debuff synergy. So let me fix this. So there's not going to be any sound effects for this, which is a little unfortunate because of that audio issue. Just the OBS wasn't working for whatever reason. So it wasn't just the microphone, so I really shouldn't be blaming the cat on it. That it's some sort of larger technical issue. If it was the cat, we would have sound effects. But we rip out Zam, go after Fennec. This is really easy and straightforward. Rip apart Scion of Jango, and then we can move on. Probably could have used, I should have used a weaker team than Han. So Bossk, probably the next option. We know the top territory is harder than this territory, so we don't need to. We can try and reserve some teams and some counters. There's high relics on those bounty hunters. I think what I end up doing is Vader. The Jango we want to respect at relic 7. And that Kylo team, it was a difficult choice for how I want to deal with that Kylo. It was actually a reason to have Bam. So I ended up going with Dash, I think. After all that deliberation. And I get a little foolish. I think I did some testing. I think I did sortie testing. Let me skip ahead. I end up doing sortie testing, but we're going to do Bossk first. This is where I do Vader Talon. This is something I've been doing a lot in 3v3. It's pretty strong. And since Talon doesn't have a great home in 3v3, boosting Vader is a really good use for her. Go into Merciless Massacre, Force Crush. Without Palpatine driving turn meter, you can't do Force Crush to start. There's a decent amount of debuffs. We chuck it. With the Vader leadership, I don't have to worry about losing the dots, so there's more incentive to throw the saber than there is in other scenarios. Get ability block back with Talon. And get to work. And this is why Sith Empire Trooper is here. Just to tank those hits. If I want to do this, I should relic him though, so things like that doesn't happen. I wish the Omega on Talon wasn't so Traya team dependent. because there's no reason to put the Omega on unless you're using her with Traya, because I would be getting no benefit out of it in this Vader scenario. And like in 3v3, that Talon Omega or Talon Omicron is useless. So chuck it, go after Embo. Another easy win to start this out. I think this was like a I finished at 2 a.m. This was like a right after midnight record, and I start strong and then I get a little loopy. That's why I didn't notice things like the audio not being set up correctly. So jump into Kylo. I was going to do something and then I stopped myself. I was considering Jedi Knight Luke, but with Jedi Knight Luke, I need him to go up against Jedi Master Luke, because on his back wall from his history, there was a chance of Sith Eternal Emperor. So depending on how I shake out all my characters, that means JMK is going to be the best counter to Sith Eternal Emperor, which means I have to use my JML up against his JMK. So I end up not doing this, but this is an easy solo, which is why I was considering it. Instead, I try something I should have thought more about or tested a little bit. We're gonna go with Fennec with some bounty hunters. This is a strong team. I want it to work, but there's a couple things going on here. The relic, I need a higher relic on Fennec. Mando really shouldn't be gear 11, because my Mando, he probably dies more often than he uses his disintegrate. So instead I use Scion of Jango. Go with the Dispel. We need to be able to use our Fennec. Remind myself which of these abilities does what, because Scion of Jango's on my defense usually. He doesn't do anything on defense. It would be nice if, for all of us players who spent the time getting him, it would be nice if we got some utility and benefit from that, all that farming effort. Because it's one of the things that was nice about Cat or Maul. The players who went after them early, got them, were able to have a slight advantage for a little bit. There's no advantage to be had with a Scion of Jango. So this quickly falls apart and does nothing. We'll never be doing that again. But it's testing, but probably testing that had I read the kits a little bit more and thought about a little bit more, I wouldn't have needed to do in the first place. And then I'm kind of rattled at this point and decide to do the sortie testing, because I get into that point of, we've already lost the battle, let's see what happens. So go with sortie. I need to do a lot of mod work for my sortie. I've been testing it out a lot, and I like what I see. This is going to be a very good squad, but one, I need gear 12, T3, and 4, and I think turn order is going to be very important. You can see the potential with all of this. We do the AoE, we land one target lock, we go with the Dispel, land more target locks, and more with IG-88, we're preventing healing, I believe, but then we lose sortie pretty quick, which is too bad. You can see the damage that we get from the combat logic upgrade Zeta on T3 and 4. It's going well. And I think this would have been a win had we had more stars on sortie, and a little bit of turn order. But we don't have what it takes to handle a Relic 5 dash. But interesting potential. Now we need to probably do Jango. I'm gonna go with a cleanup first. I don't use Kylo here. I definitely use Kylo somewhere else. Just considering first order, and maybe that would have been a good idea because it would have saved me from doing something later. Which, actually, I think that's what I do right now. As I was putting together that first order team, what it made me think about and realize was in the Swugga.gg data, one of the higher performing defensive teams right now is a Kylo Ren lead Sith Trooper and Star Killer team. I want to see how that does. And it's pretty good. Like, you can see the potentiality of it. Do I not do it right now? Let me skip ahead to whatever I end up doing. So this is what I end up doing. Jango. So I end up going with Padme for Jango because with the Padme doesn't have a lot of great uses anymore when JMK's taking all these characters away and Qui-Gon's taking characters away. But she can resist debuffs pretty well, so Jango getting the contract off is going to be less likely. There's also a decent amount of assists and retribution that's going to be happening from Grief, so we know that the protection up is going to be happening. I just become a little indecisive trying to decide which characters I want. And this is the call I make, and this is a bad call. Is not the call I make? How many times am I going to change my mind on this? Okay, that's a good call. So debuffs land, we cleanse. Now we don't got to worry about that contract. Try to go for the stun. There's only one relic here. Getting rid of Mando will pretty much eliminate their win condition, so I go after him first. Brought in Ayla for the control. Cleanse up again and get protection up. Preventing all the double taps, any progress on the contract. And quickly tank out Jango. So I go for clones, and this was the bad call, because I know I misused Rex and 5s. This, I think, is a good idea at the time, because it's... I don't... At the time, I wasn't thinking about how else I could be using Rex and 5s, and how I did actually have some other good uses for Rex and 5s. This isn't a bad call because it doesn't work. It's a bad call because it prevents me from using them in the future in much more beneficial scenarios. This ends up working exactly how I think it's going to. This is fine. Now for Kylo. And for the same reason as Rex, this is a strategic error. It works. Strategically, though, it's going to compromise me. So this is where I put together this Kylo Ren Sith Trooper team, which is tantalizing. I like it. Bring in Starkiller. But one of my self-critiques has been not using Starkiller in ideal situations. Situations where he is going up against opponents worthy of him. So this is nice. Like, you can see all the assists, all the damage that is occurring. It's very effective. And in the moment, I like it. Go into the Dispel, we take out First Order Officer. Kylo's doing some work. Crew is down. Almost to 100. There's our 100 stacks. Go into the special. And we get our win. For the back territory. We do end up getting Sith Eternal Emperor. There's Dengar, Bastila, Mother Talzin. All those teams were in his Grand Arena history, which is part of the reason why I was feeling a little confident. I was thinking about doing my Jango solo I do sometimes, but we really need to address the GL situation. Because I need to know if I'm going to have a good day or a bad day. So we're going to start with JMK. Because that is step one. I need to know if I'm going to clear this territory or not. So we are going to do JML, Jedi Knight Luke, Jedi Knight Revan, and this is something that we did successfully last week. And last week, we saw how tricky this counter can be. So I go for the increased cooldowns. And this is where I should have left it. I go for the mark. And I think I should have swapped. Because what's key about doing this counter is making sure Cat can never do the... This is also an error. I need to make sure Cat never does the I want to say annihilate ability, but it's not accurate. For her to do her insta-kill, and in order to do that, you need to parse out those abilities that stun, ability block, increase cooldowns in ways in which she can't get her attack. And I don't parse them out, I stack them up. And strategically, that's a mistake. So we increase cooldowns, we're still buying time. But now we've lost my Jedi Knight Revan. This is a mistake here. Because I can't land ability block because the foresight is up. So it's not really a mistake. There's nothing I can do about it. And actually, even if I played it correctly, I don't know if things would have gone much better. Because this all falls apart after Jedi Knight Revan is lost. Maybe had I played it differently, we don't lose Jedi Knight Revan when I do. So I keep playing it out, hoping I can at least get a more favorable situation in the cleanup. But it's not something that is going to be very relevant. It's not like I have other options to clean up this counter with. So that puts me into a very bad position, because I don't have another counter for Sith Eternal Emperor. My Wampa is not high enough relics. I got rid of Starkiller. Maul doesn't really work the same way, which is my 5v5 counter is Maul. Without Wat, without the depth in those Mandalorians, it's not going to work the same. But I decide to go for my best shot and see if I can get lucky. And maybe I would have been better off had I done all of this in a different order. So I put these characters together. I'm considering Wat. I don't think I ended up doing Wat. Maybe I did. So I end up putting in Wat, and I don't think it matters. I think it's kind of a bad call, and maybe I should have done Canderous and kept Jango. So weapons tech onto Jango for the turn meter. No, I do it on Maul, I guess. So we go for the stacks. I don't know why I did that. I don't know. This was a match where, one, it was late, but it was also just, it was one where I made a lot of bad decisions. I definitely outplayed myself. See, I think this could have been more interesting or effective had I done this later. And probably without Sith Eternal. Or not, without Wat. There's just not enough assists and attacks where this ever has much of a shot. That's as close as we get. Canderous at Relic 3 wasn't going to make much of a difference. It would have helped. I think he only gets down to the red though. And now this is pretty much over. I just go for a Talon to get rid of the protection and hope that in the cleanup we get a slightly better shot. Because Talon starts off with stealth. It's a very annoying character where I know because of the stealth of this squad that he put together, I'm never going to be able to target them in the ways that I want and get myself into a more favorable cleanup. And we go right back into it. And we go with a Wampa. I don't know what relic level I need, but this was a worthy test to see how close or far off Relic 5 is for this use. So it starts off a little scary. I wasn't sure if I was going to get to the protection up. But you can see how I can't target these characters the way that I want. We go with Furious Foe, get the healing immunity, get some dots. And go for the hit. Maybe Furious Foe would have been the better choice. But we get rid of Dooku. I need to survive one more hit to get to protection up again. I get some health. I get to the protection up. So you can see how this would work. Like, it's almost there. It's just like the pieces are there for it to work. It would have been nice if I would have been getting some counters. But it's over. And now to bring Mando in this situation, I think would have been more interesting. Not a ton better, but slightly better. So we need to head up, use JMK now. We could try JMK up against Sith Eternal Emperor, but we need to clear the territory and get through it. So we're in a situation where we are forced into doing this now. Commander Ahsoka, Kenobi, they have preloaded turn meter, but their cooldowns are also messed up. Get myself prepared to take out Kenobi. I know my Kenobi is going to go down eventually, but we have at least a little bit of time. Yes, the Savior. Oh, we get through, yeah, we get through Commander Ahsoka without losing our Kenobi at least, and then we auto from here. Fairly straightforward, and this is one we would have won had we done this to start. But I think we had to try and go for the win and do JML. I wish I would have played it a little bit better. I don't know if we would have won it regardless. So go in here. The gas battle I missed because I forgot to unpause at some point because I was exhausted and rattled. So we do Nute now. It was just a night of technical difficulties apparently for myself. This was straightforward and easy. Nothing to really analyze here. Gas was up against the Darth Revan. It was straightforward. There's no Sith Eternal or not. Why is that in my mouth today? There's no Malak, so it's straightforward with Gas. There's the first of the Nutes. Other than the GLs, like the rest of this, we handle pretty well. We have to do some weird, I guess not that much weird stuff. You can down below, the Darth Revan team is gone. Iden here. In another world, we could have used Wampa. Instead, we go with Traya. Pretty safe counter. The relic on Stark's not going to make a huge difference. Go for the Dispel, make sure Pain is on everyone so Cyan can be taunting. Already held by Hatred. Dispel any buffs. And Death is down. Isolate onto Iden. I don't think it really matters. Keep working over on Stark. Stark dies. Nice big hit from Cyan. We don't even need or get to an Annihilate. Grievous, this is one where I compromise myself a little bit, I think. I forget exactly what happens. So we try Bad Batch because this is low gear. With only the Grievous Relic as a concern. It's not without risk though. Because I don't have Wrecker and Omega with their protection recovery. So we cleanse, get the assist. And that was a bad call. I should have clicked on Hunter to get translation on Hunter. This is what I mean. I just was not playing well. We lose Echo, which means this is over. It was a reckless call to begin with. I never should have done it. What I should have done the whole time was Shock T, and I don't know why I didn't do it. Or did I use Echo and Arc somewhere? That may have been what I did. Where did I? Or were they on defense? Because Shock T's there. I'd have to look back. I don't... Or maybe when I was paused, I used... Oh, that's what I did. That's what I did. That's what I did. Yeah, so you don't see it because I was paused, is when I did gas up against Darth Revan, I had to use Echo and Arc Trooper there. Because I had used Rex and Fives to clean up Dash. That's where that strategic mistake was. So in order to beat Darth Revan, I was forced into not using ideal clones, which then took Arc and Echo away from Shock T to have a better and more effective Grievous counter. It was just that the compounding mistakes that occur when you make one bad decision. So I just should have found something better to take on Dash. Like I could have used this up against Dash and been able to handle Grievous in one. Talia's here for Dispel if healing immunity lands. Or cleanse, I guess I try to call it. The CG calls Dispel both on opponents or allies. I like to say Dispel on opponents, cleanse on allies. So healing immunity has landed. Now we can cleanse. And there we go. No, not quite. There we go. Now on to wrap up the only squads we can beat on this back wall. We got a Maul, we got Talzane. It would have been nice to have done a solo here. I wish I would have done some testing here. So I decided to do a Nest solo up against Bastila, but this would have been a good team to do the Inquisitors up against. It probably would have worked, but I don't know either way now. And I probably could use Nest somewhere else. I almost want to just speed this up. This is not very interesting. This just takes some time. And it takes time because the protection up, like you can see it in the bar here, where the protection up is never completely going away. Now looking at Maul. So I do something here where I just throw in some Jedi, and I get a little afraid here. One of the things I didn't consider was the Brute Zeta on Savage. Because if you look at all these they're all Jedi that don't really have the mechanics to really take on Savage. And I became very concerned for a moment that Savage was just going to recover a bunch and I wouldn't be able to win. Once I do this basic hit though, I think I basically proved myself that that is not a legitimate concern. We're going to be dispelling a lot. There's not a bunch of as much recovery as I thought would have or could have been happening. All these basic hits that Shock T does is enough. I really would like it if that Brute Zeta was better. Just usable. I don't know what they would need to do to make it similar to Nest without being better than Nest or equal to Nest. I still think it should be worse. I just wish it was more usable in today's game. I wonder if I could use it up against like those Rolo teams and stuff. I doubt that I can. But I wonder if there's like older GL prerequisite relic squads that people throw on defense that it could be used up against. Oh, I like Savage. That's when I started playing, was when that Zeta was king. Alright, so I'm going into Tell. I think I do Mandos here. Let's skip it. I look at things but decide not to do it. So we do bow, Canderous, armor. And this is very effective. I wish Mandos were a little bit better without Maul. Like, I really tried to make a bow and armor squad work before I had Maul unlocked. It could never really happen. There was really interesting synergy with Gar Saxon. It just never completely fell into place, mainly because Gar Saxon's a tank and not an attacker. Time for fleets. As you can see, Executor, Negotiator, Rebels, pretty tough lineup. Oh, I think I make a mistake. So right here I make the mistake. I go right into this battle. I needed Ebon Hawk. Now, I'm lucky this is a 4-star Executor. So because I'm so much faster, because I have the 6-star Executor, I cannot attack this the way that I like to and normally do. I should have gone with the mass assist as my first move. I just, out of habit, I didn't. Because I'm usually the slower Executor. We rip our way through Cad Bane, which is good. And now I realize I don't have the Ebon Hawk. Forced into using the Slave 1, but it would have been nice to have brought out the Hawk to cleanse all of that target lock. Now I got my Razor Crest marked, and that is a huge problem. I throw a hit over there. I've got 2 target locks, so I can take advantage of the AoE. They dispel. And now I'm getting very worried. Bring out IG-2000 basics. We get the payout though, which is pretty huge. You can tell that he's weaker, because he should have been able to get through my Razor Crest by now. Like, this would have been a complete loss had this not been 4 stars. We get to another AoE. That'll take care of... No, it doesn't take care of Slave 1. This takes care of Slave 1. We get my ultimate, which was very necessary. What do I choose? Yeah, heal up. We should have another seismic charge coming up. And there we go. So I get away with one. Considering how this match went, I needed it. Negotiator here, not an ideal lineup. But we got the Malevolence. This is a straightforward counter. Throw those buzz droids down. Go with a cleanse. Cleanse Sunfac on the assist. Buzz droid should trigger the stealth and undying loyalty on Anakin. That's why you never put Sergeant in your reinforcements. He's a priority, and he's probably going to come out. Take out Anakin. And we're in a good spot now. Whether or not we lose the Hyena Bomber. We can lose the Hyena Bomber as long as Anakin's gone. Just wanted to make sure that the buzz droids are actually there. Sometimes... I don't know if that bug is fixed debating between a reinforcement or not, decided to go the safer route. Bring out another vulture droid. His Plo, I think he must have, no, I think his Plo is fine. Daze is on everybody, so we don't get too much help there. The other Geos are in the yellow, so I'm going to bring out Soldier. No sense in taking on unneeded risk. That'll be Rebels. I wish the Outrider was more usable at lower stars. Although I guess it should be coming farmable in a couple more weeks. It's been what, at least 2 weeks of it in shipments? Probably went into shipments around May the 4th. We're close at least. Go with Y-Wing. Biggs I can tell is weaker, so I target him and just blast through him. Those are really weak Biggs. Get the disruption on Y-Wing. He must have. He did not have Jedi Knight Luke. So he probably did not have a Relic Biggs, and I don't know what his Akbar was like. And that wraps that up. We will add on to the end of this video a wrap up of what this round looked like. That misplay of the JMK counter ends up costing me. We don't get away with one here. My defense does hold though, but my opponent was far more efficient, and that is the difference in the front territory. I believe Nute gets a hold, which is why that's a team I set down. I think that's, 2 out of 6. So 1/3 of the time it has gotten me a hold. On the back wall, I think this was all one shot, which was disappointing. I was hoping he'd get tripped up by the Tuskens. It does not occur. Top territory, I think, was clean. Yeah, so he only gets tripped up once by Nute, and so that's really the difference in the banners. And Fleet ends up holding. Why can't I scroll? He can't get through the negotiator. He did set down a pretty strong Fleet defense. Let's go back in and see if that fixes it. Yeah, Empire was one shot. He set down Executor and Negotiator on defense. Probably tried the Malevolence counter up against the Negotiator, but misplayed it. But he's a player who has SLKR, so he had a strong Finalizer fleet. to go up against me with. And that will wrap it up. Slightly frustrating loss because it was completely winnable, but really that one misplay in particular where I did it correctly last week, where I spread out my holds, stuns, and ability blocks, or not holds, the increased cooldowns, stuns, and ability blocks on Cat properly last week. This time I did not, which prevents me from clearing Cat and forcing me to use JMK up against JMK instead of having more options up against Sith Eternal Emperor. Next week we'll have a little bit more flexibility. My Wampa is going to be much better for next week, and I should have a few other weapons at my disposal. But thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone. Be excellent to each other. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.